What's up, everybody? Hope you guys are doing well on, I guess you could still call this Red Friday, right? It's the off season, but we are here for a quick live stream with Carrington Harrison, a.k.a. his name today is Stop Talking About Justin Ross from 610 Sports to talk free agency moves. How you doing today, man? Doing all right?
I just want to at least clarify why I have that opinion about Justin Ross. Like, I think people hear it like I'm anti-Justin Ross. I'm not anti-Justin Ross. I've never met the man before. I've never talked to him before. I don't have any reason to be anti-Justin Ross. But right now, he is like Chiefs Twitter Bigfoot. Like, we all talk about him, but like no one has ever seen him before. And just I don't even know at this point like what realistic expectations are. So we actually talked about this on my radio show a couple days ago. So out of Justin Ross, Powell, or John Ross, who's most likely to have 250 yards receiving next year? And I still would bet on John Ross. Like, Justin Ross has never proven that he's an NFL wide receiver. Cornell Powell has never proven that he's an NFL receiver. John Ross has at least proven that he is an NFL receiver. Now, how good of an NFL receiver he is, that's a different conversation for a different day. But I guess I get it. Optimism right now is an all-time high with the Chiefs. I can't imagine watching the Chiefs and then spending any amount of time optimistic, hopeful, anticipating anything with Justin Ross.
Yeah. I'm kind of like, I hope he does well, makes the roster, but who knows? Either way, the Chiefs have some holes to fill. There's been a lot of moves this week. There was a breaking signing earlier from the Chiefs, if you saw that. Nick Allegretti is back on a one-year deal. So that
counts as a breaking news story.
I'm being a little trolly.
What other team was he going to play for, Cole? I don't know what team you thought Nick Allegretti was about to go play for, but that's the least surprising news. I'm waiting. You're going to tell me that they signed Jerick McKinnon back to a deal. That's what you're going to stop the podcast for, to tell me that Jerick McKinnon's back on the team.
I'm waiting for that, honestly, but you never know.
There's so many of those running backs right now that are free agents. I saw a tweet. It was like, these are the running backs between 28 and 30 right now that are free agents. And there was 15 of them that are in the Jerick McKinnon ilk. So I think it's going to be a little bit till he signs. But I actually do think McKinnon's going to be back on the team.
Yeah, I have that feeling as well. Well, man, we have not talked at all since free agency frenzy. The last time we talked, I think it was just last week on my last live stream. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on just Chief stuff going on. I mean, obviously, they filled a couple needs. Offensive tackle Jawan Taylor, defensive end Charles Omenihu. They brought back Turk Wharton, tendered a few, guys, but they still have wide receiver needs. A lot of guys left. Juju, Patriots, Juan Thornhill, Browns, Colin Saunders, Mike Burton, Orlando Brown Jr. That's a big one with the Bengals. Where do you want to start? Let's chat.
So I want to read a text to you really quickly. So I'm sure you use Spot Track the same way that I do. Maybe you use Over the Cap. I'm a Spot Track guy myself. So I texted Mike Giannetti. He runs the site. And I asked him, hey, did Orlando Brown get a bad deal here? Like, we know what he was offered last year for the Chiefs. Did he get a bad deal with the Cincinnati Bengals? Like, how much money was left on the table? So let's start with this. I'll just read it to you.
Okay.
So he texted me and said, I'm actually not reading this contract as a huge loss. My guess is he turned down the Chiefs deal last year because it was 6 years long and backloaded. The way I read it is the offer last July, he was set to earn $73.5 million from 2022 through 2025. If he had played out his 2022 tag and the $50 million that he's set to get from this Bengals deal, he'll get around $66.6 million over the course of those years. So quantitatively, it's around a $7 million loss. But being able to rip up the contract and start after 2025 before he turns age 30 is easily more valuable than that, in my opinion. So I think there's been this conversation that Orlando Brown played this so poorly, Orlando Brown lost. And originally, I thought that too when I first saw the deal put out there by Ian Rappaport or Albert Breer. I can't remember who the first person was. I had the perception of, ooh, you took a big loss. I think now just hearing this, and you and I both use Spot Track Over the Cap, I trust their numbers and their breakdown of these things. I mean, in one hand, you could make $7 million. Like, I'm not – you could or $7 million. Or on the other side, you have the ability to be a free agent earlier than you normally would. Which one is more valuable? Is it taking the $7 million or having the ability to be a free agent earlier in your career? That's an interesting proposition that I do think the conversation with Orlando Brown needs to shift from how his agent was so bad and how he played himself. He signed a good contract with a good team and tomorrow gets $31 million to play football. Like, in what
Right.
world is that person a loser in this? Like, that person is a winner in all of this. So that's where I want to start with Orlando Brown. I think there's been a miscommunication about A, the contract that the Chiefs offered him, and B, what he just signed for the Cincinnati Bengals. That contract is not a loss.
Yeah, I mean, I saw it, and it, like the signing bonus, people were kind of gawking at that at first, but I'm like, dude, the Chiefs offered a $30 million signing bonus to him last year with that deal. So, yeah, I didn't see it as like a huge loss for Orlando. I think I was just surprised initially just to see that he signed with the Bengals. I mean, he doesn't have to have any loyalty to not sign to a Chiefs rival. That just probably caught me the most off guard. I was like, whoa. But yeah, man, I'm happy for the guy. I mean, I DM'd him, said congrats, and yeah, he's a good dude. We're moving on. We got Jawan Taylor. Do you think that's left tackle? Or do you think the Chiefs have their eyes open elsewhere and possibly in the draft?
I think it's going to be hard to get your starting left tackle at 31. Like, if you look at the way the draft is set up, that's just not where you find your day one starting left tackle. I also just question, so Jawan Taylor has been paid. We don't know if he's right or left. I think he's going to play left tackle, but they've paid Jawan Taylor, right? They've paid Joe Thuney. Next year, they're going to have to pay Creed Humphrey. Creed Humphrey is not going to continue to be one of the 10 best offensive linemen in the National Football League and make $2 million. That's just not how the league works. He is going to want an extension. I imagine you want to keep Trey Smith in the fold. All right. What team can pay all 5 of their offensive linemen? Like, somebody has to play under a rookie contract. So I think what's in the best interest of the Chiefs is Jawan Taylor is now your left tackle. Joe Thuney is your left guard. I think you probably reach some kind of extension, some kind of restructure with him at the end of next season. You pay Creed Humphrey. We'll see what happens with Trey Smith. I don't know if you want to pay both Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. Right guard seems like a position that you could probably figure out, but I wouldn't be surprised if they paid Trey Smith. And your right tackle probably has to play on a rookie contract. Like, you got to figure these things as a puzzle. And there's only so many second veteran contracts that you can give out in the course of this thing. I just don't know if you can pay your left tackle, your right tackle, your left guard, your center, and you're not giving all 5 of your offensive linemen second contracts. Like, I just don't think that's the best way to build your roster.
So with all that being said, it sounds like the Chiefs could still trade for Laramie Tunsil.
That just doesn't make sense to me. If I had to guess, I think their starting offensive line is Jawan Taylor at left tackle, and Lucas Niang is given every opportunity to win the job in St. Joe at right tackle. He's on a rookie contract. He was a fine right tackle, and he's only played 2 seasons, still on a rookie contract. You still got 2 more years of club control because the COVID year doesn't count against his contract. If I had to guess, it's either him. So I would guess I'd probably rank it this way: Lucas Niang, Darian Kennard, or mid-round draft pick fighting for that spot. Or I could see them going out to get the Kyle Long, Austin Blythe. I could see them getting that type of a right tackle, and that person is in the mix for next year.
It's definitely not going to be Andrew Wiley. He got a bag to go play with EB in Washington.
I was a little surprised, honestly. I was a little surprised that Wiley's contract was so big. Let's talk about wide receiver next.
Yep.
I'm sure that was on the list as well.
Yes, sir.
I think they need one more veteran wide receiver. I understand this. Excuse me. I understand this in Veach we trust, right? Like, this is not me being super critical of Brett Veach. It's just I would maybe build a roster differently than some other people would build a roster. Last year, you had 2, quote, proven receivers. MVS was a proven guy with the track record, and you got Juju Smith-Schuster last year who had a track record. Get another one of those kind of guys. Go get a DJ Chark. Go get a Odell Beckham. Go make that move for that second other option. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster was their second best offensive skill position player last year. Maybe you want to argue it was Isaiah Pacheco. Like, that's, if you made that argument, I wouldn't fight you. Kelsey was one. And then it's a conversation between Juju and Pacheco, who you thought was their second best offensive option. Like, you got to replace those yards in some way. And maybe you would want to place it with Kadarius Toney, but Kadarius Toney was hurt in Florida. He was hurt with the Giants. He's already been hurt with Kansas City. Going into next year, counting on getting 20 games from Kadarius Toney is just a bad proposition. At least him being your number one option. I think Kadarius Toney is a perfect third option for your team. He touches the ball 50, 60, maybe 70 times over the course of the year. He probably misses a couple of games with an injury and plays in 13 games next year. But you can't go into next year thinking that Kadarius Toney is going to get 115 targets. Nothing in his track record would show you that he's going to be healthy enough to get that many targets.
Yeah, I mean, if healthy, I mean, this guy could have 1,000 yards from scrimmage easy, but that's like the biggest question mark is his health. And yeah, I'm curious what the Chiefs have up their sleeves. I mean, as the days roll on, we're just watching free agent after free agent go. I mean, I was kind of interested in Darius Slayton. He's back with the Giants. You know, all these people just keep going off the board. And Juju's deal for the Patriots, I mean, once you saw like the details, I'm like, the Chiefs weren't even close to that. So they must just not have been high on a Juju return.
I'm just like you, man. And when you saw the actual details of that contract, you just didn't want Juju back. Like, it's really that simple. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be like if you made $40,000 at your job and another company offered you 45, and you were like, "Hey, I love being here. I want to stay here. Can you guys just match this 45,000?" Like, I don't know, we can't do it. Well, then they don't want you to work there anymore. Like, they told you how they value you. Juju's contract is basically 2 more years of what they were already paying him. You got to think that he hit $5 million in incentives this past year. He had over 60 catches. That's $1.5 million. He had over 700 yards. That's $1.5 million. They won the Super Bowl. You know, you paid him his base salary. You remember, they then gave him that restructure in August, so they gave him more money. Yeah. It was basically, do you want Juju at the same price that you paid him the last 2 years? And they said no. They didn't want him. They didn't want him in that situation. So I'm with you. When I saw the actual numbers for Juju Smith-Schuster, they weren't willing to pay what the market says Juju was worth. So so one of my big questions is, and I hope we get an opportunity to ask this question to Brett Veach or whomever. Let's say they go get DeAndre Hopkins, right? Like, let's say when the time we get off of here, I got to end up calling you back because they made the trade for DeAndre Hopkins. Why are you more willing to pay 31-year-old DeAndre Hopkins than you were willing to pay 26-year-old Juju Smith-Schuster? Like, in what world is paying the older receiver the better option than paying the younger receiver who's already been in your offense? So I'm just throwing him out as a possibility, but I really like DJ Chark. I think DJ Chark is in that same vein that if you're Patrick Mahomes, this would be my message if somebody like DJ Chark called me. Look at what we just did for Juju. This time last year in March, signed a 1-year, $3.5 million base salary contract. Nothing. Juju's value could not have been lower than it was this time last year. I just got him $21 million guaranteed. I got him a championship. DJ Chark, I could do the exact same thing for you. I can do the exact same thing. Come in here, keep your head down, ball out. I got Juju 100 targets last year. I'll get you around the same. You get your 70 catches. You get your 900 yards. And maybe you re-sign here and maybe you go elsewhere. But, I mean, that should be the message if you're the Chiefs. So I'm not, like, against, like, hey, if you made the decision to not sign Juju, that's perfectly fine. You just have to show me what the other option is, because I don't think you can go into next season with MVS as your only veteran wide receiver. You cannot go into a system where he's the only guy who's played more than, 3 seasons in the National Football League. I don't think that MVS can be your only guy that fits that criteria.
Yeah, I like Chark too. I mean, to kind of echo that, I mean, he's one of those guys, he fractured his ankle, I think 2 seasons ago, went on IR last season in the middle of the year with ankle issues. So kind of bounced backwards a little bit as far as production goes. He could be a guy that, yeah, exactly like a Juju thing that could project him or propel him in the future with a bigger deal if he comes and takes maybe more of a flyer. I mean, the wide receiver market right now is crazy. Everybody's signing for like dirt. So that's why I'm like, the Chiefs have to have a plan. They have to have some thoughts there. I mean, I'm seeing comments in here on the stream, they're talking about draft. Yeah, the Chiefs definitely are probably going to draft a wide receiver. Don't know where, but kind of what Carrington said, man. If MVS is your main guy, I mean, he's a great guy, but you need more than that. DeAndre Hopkins, if the Chiefs said, what if the Chiefs got DeAndre for a 4th and a 7th, and D-Hop already said on the Pat McAfee show he's willing to restructure his deal, and he came in cheaper. I'm intrigued by the idea, I guess. Wouldn't have been, I mean, I'm not Brett Veach, but I would have thought they would go with somebody younger to at least fill a productive role next season.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about DeAndre Hopkins, and we talked about it before, is they've never made a move like DeAndre Hopkins. There's not one move you can point to in which they traded for a player or made a significant investment in a player that's over 30 years old that's not Travis Kelce. That's the only one. I mean, now, I think we all can agree when you gave Travis Kelce an extension, no one was like, oh, no, why would you do this? Like, hold on, he's the greatest player ever at his position, arguably. So, yeah, you don't have any issues with that. But Patrick Mahomes has thrown one touchdown pass to a player over 30 years old. It was Josh Gordon. No one's putting the Josh Gordon conversation in the same thing as DeAndre Hopkins. They've just never made a move. Look at this year in free agency. They signed Jawan Taylor. He's 25 years old. They signed Charles Omenihu. He's 25 years old. Think about last year. They signed Justin Reed. How old was Justin Reed? 25 years old. Like they sign guys who are between 24 and 27. That's what you should be doing. That's your prime football playing age, 24 to 27. DeAndre Hopkins is just out of prime football playing age. That doesn't mean that he can't be good next year, but you're up against the clock. Like Charles Omenihu is a guy that you think has a next level, another gear. You think that you could elevate his contract. No one thinks that you're doing that with DeAndre Hopkins.
No, exactly. And then I know you probably got to go in a second, but let's just talk for a minute, 30 seconds on Odell. I don't know if you can see my screen, but I tweeted this out yesterday. Odell Beckham Jr.'s last 3 seasons. 2020, 7 games, 23 receptions, 319 yards, 3 TDs, tore his ACL. 2021, 14 games, 44 receptions, 537 yards, 5 TDs, tore his ACL in the Super Bowl. Last season did not play due to recovering from his second ACL tear on the same knee, rather. What are your thoughts on bringing him in, and what would you have him for? Was it just like a 1-year risk it for the biscuit kind of a thing for a veteran presence? Like, what are you thinking? Because that's comments in the stream right now. A lot of people are like, well, what about Odell?
Yeah, I mean, you just pointed it out. I mean, the last 3 years with Odell Beckham, 2 of them have ended with an ACL, and then this past year he couldn't play because of a torn ACL. Like, I'd put him in the same vein as Kadarius Toney. Like, if you're going into a season and you're expecting 17 games out of Odell Beckham, I would just say you're making a very foolish proposition. I'm fine with Odell in the same way that I'd be fine with Adam Thielen, for example. If Adam Thielen is your 3rd wide receiver, you're fine. I got no issues with that. But you signing Odell can't be, oh, we're good. We've got Odell Beckham and MVS as our 1 and 2 option. So if you're telling me it's Odell Beckham and a move, all right. Like, if you're telling me right now that the plan this offseason is they get Odell Beckham and then they move up to get Quentin Johnson, the wide receiver out of TCU, because they think he can be a star, I don't have a problem with that. Like, I want this team, if you look right now at wide receiver, your best hope, your best chance is find somebody in that low 20s that you think has a chance to be a star, and you got club control at least for the first 3 years. Like, find your Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk was a first-round pick. He was picked 20. Brandon Ayuk would be the best receiver on this team, not close, and you're paying him rookie money. So that's your best hope. That's your best hope, is to draft a wide receiver. He's your Brandon Ayuk. He's your late first round, really productive receiver, has 800 yards receiving, and you got him at $2.5 million. So if you're telling me that their plan is Adam Thielen, their plan is Odell Beckham, their plan is DJ Chark, and a wide receiver option that they draft in the first or second round, yeah, I'm more than for it. But you can't pick up Odell Beckham and then tell me you're done at the wide receiver position, because MVS is probably a 3 at best. Kadarius Toney has shown no ability to stay healthy. Odell Beckham has been broken down for the last 4 years. You haven't done enough at wide receiver, in my opinion. Now, you got Patrick Mahomes, and that's going to fix a lot of the issues, a lot of the warts that you have on your team. But last year, your wide receiver group was substantially better than I think you have right now, because you had somebody in Juju Juju has proven it before. Like, it's not like we didn't think Juju could play. At least I didn't. I can't speak for everybody else. I thought Juju was going to be good. Juju just played with the corpse of Ben Roethlisberger. That I'm not surprised that when you put Juju Smith-Schuster with a capable offense, that Juju Smith-Schuster was good.
And even then, around the draft, they had Juju, they had MVS, and the Chiefs were one of the final-ish teams in on a potential trade for A.J. Brown. So, I mean, Brett Veach was like, he was potentially going to load up. I mean, if they would have done that, probably wouldn't have got Toney. But still, like, I don't think Veach is going to go in without the mindset of, we got to get weapons for Mahomes. I mean, because it would just be lethal. So you can't rule out some move happening either if he was willing to go after A.J. Brown last year. And that would have required quite a bit of movement. I mean, Brandon Ayuk is actually somebody, if the 49ers would be willing to part ways with, I would love that. Not saying that's going to happen, but it's just my thoughts kind of twirl. And but yeah, we're kind of on the same page. If they take a flyer on an older vet, they have to swing early, in my opinion, or I would think so in the draft, because they've kind of filled the need a little bit with defensive end and offensive tackle. I'm not saying they won't take more in the draft at D-line and O-line, but wide receiver as of right now is definitely like, what are they doing?
Yeah, I mean, I would say right now, if you're asking me, like, how would I evaluate the needs for the team, I put it at wide receiver 1. I still think they need more defensive line help. Like, we don't know what Carlos Dunlap is going to do in this situation. So, like, let's tell me right now that Carlos Dunlap said he was coming back. Like, I would probably move that off of my top 3. So if you're telling me that Amenahu is the Frank Clark replacement, obviously Chris Jones, George Karlaftis, and you brought back Turk Wharton, and then Dunlap is back. And then, I mean, you'll probably draft somebody. You'll pick up Mike Pennell, Brandon Williams type. We all know how the defensive line works. And then I would say right tackle, which I think they have an answer for. I just don't know if people like the answer. I mean, the answer, I think, is already on the roster. I think the answer is Kennard or Lucas Niang. It's just, do people like that answer?
No, that's good, man. I appreciate your time, and thanks for chatting. I want to honor your time. I don't know what time you have to get off. It's 12:03. You have a couple more minutes, or you got to jump off?
All I'm going to do is get ready for the show and watch the NCAA tournament, so I got a little bit of time.
No, awesome, man. Are you surprised? Let's do this real quick. The Chiefs just restructured Mahomes' contract, freed up some cap space. It didn't really do much at the end of the day with, adding on a bunch of money to Mahomes' current deal, with the years he's got on his contract. Some people are saying, well, that move was just kind of an essential move to make sure they have cap space for people they're going to draft, rookies, all that stuff. What do you think? You think they're loading up to make a little bit of a move with that restructure? Because they could do other things as well to free up more cap space, including extend Chris Jones, which we're waiting for, hopefully.
Yeah, I would say that it's a move for something bigger than they've done so far. I mean, I guess Jawan Taylor's a big move. I don't want to make it seem like it's not a big move, but I would say getting Jawan Taylor is almost the same as extending Orlando Brown Jr. Like, it's just kind of, it's red or green pill. Like, it's a very similar kind of move. I do think we'll get a Chris Jones extension, probably a L'Jarius Sneed extension this offseason. I know you and I talked about it one of the last couple times that we talked, but like, there's no reason to think they're interested in trading L'Jarius Sneed. So you're interested in keeping him then in that situation, I would say. So, yeah, it's probably one of those kind of moves. And I do think that they're going to make I made a list of like 6 wide receivers I thought were possible. Paris Campbell just came off the board, so now it's down to
Yep.
5. I think they get Odell Beckham, DeAndre Hopkins, Adam Thielen, DJ Chark. Now receivers are still on the list. So yeah, I would say that's probably that's probably it. They probably make one wide receiver move. They probably go get one of those wide receivers.
Who was that last one on your list? You lagged a little bit.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, that's the Odyssey Internet. So DJ Chark, Beckham, DeAndre Hopkins. I had Slayton on the list. He's off. Paris Campbell is off the list. Or Adam Thielen. I think that one of those 4 receivers will be on the team.
Are you happy with the moves that the Chiefs have made so far? I mean, it's a long offseason. It's calculated.
Yeah, I don't think you can be unhappy about it. Like, this is the thing that you and I have kind of joked about before. I subscribe to the trust in Veach theory, but like you wouldn't have a YouTube channel if your stance on everything was just, oh, well, Brett Veach has it. Well, that sounds boring as hell. Nobody wants to just do that. Like, I feel like sometimes in these conversations in the offseason, every conversation is, well, trust in Brett Veach. And then during the football season, it's, well, they have Patrick Mahomes. I'm not saying those two things are wrong. Like, they're great things to subscribe to, but we wouldn't have any Chiefs content if that was every conversation. It would be pretty boring if that's the case. I don't have a problem with any of their moves. I think you could, now that we see what Orlando Brown Jr. signed for, I think you can make the strong argument that they should have brought back Orlando Brown Jr. over signing Jawan Taylor to a contract. Like, you could argue that if you want to. The money seems pretty comparable between the two. I think you could argue that Orlando Brown Jr. is a better player than Jawan Taylor. So you could make that argument. I love the Charles Omenihu move. Like, those are the kind of moves
really good
that I get doesn't get a lot of fanfare. He plays on the defensive line. He wasn't one of the, pop and sizzle guys with San Francisco last year, but that's just a really good player. That I really love that deal. I mean, outside of that, they haven't really done anything else. You know what I mean? They've lost guys. My producer and I, we kind of argue about this a little bit back and forth. I don't think the goal of every draft pick is to re-sign for the future. Like, when you get McCole Hardman, you get him to a 4-year, $4.5 million contract, and then you're happy when that guy goes and gets paid. You're happy when Charvarius Ward goes and gets paid. You're happy when a Juan Thornhill gets paid, and then you just do the circle of life. Hey, we got Justin Reed. We got Brian Cook. He's the replacement for Juan Thornhill, and hopefully Brian Cook is a productive player. And then at some point, Brian Cook either turns into Justin Reed, or you let Brian Cook walk in free agency, and then you draft the next Brian Cook. I mean, that's how this thing works. I mean, there's only about 8 to 10 of these second contracts that you're giving out on any team, and you've already got a handful of those. Chris Jones is on a second contract. Tooney is on a big-time contract. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce. I mean, you're not signing 15 players to these kind of deals. You're signing 8 to 10 of them. So you got to let a Juan Thornhill walk. You got to let a McCole Hardman walk. You got to let these guys sign with other teams, and you hope that you continue to draft, replenish, develop those players, and then you start the next crop, the next wave.
Yep, 100% agree. And even the moves they've made this offseason, it was interesting what you said about Orlando. You could have argued maybe bringing him back for that price. I have a feeling, and I don't have any inside sources, but I have a feeling the Chiefs are moving on from him. I don't know if they were just kind of tired of it all or what, but if you could have got Orlando for that and they didn't, kind of the same reason you could have got Juju for what he got and they didn't. I'm excited to see, I guess, Jawan Taylor and what happens there. I'm really excited about Charles Omenihu. I mean, he was the 6th best edge rusher at win rate last year. Out in the top 5, I mean, we're big guys. So I'm excited about him. They got him because, there's some off the field stuff going on. I think that's why they got him for the price that they did. But I think it was a great signing. I'm excited. I'm happy, but I'm like a little impatient like everybody else is. I'll be curious to see what their next move is. Unless you have any other thoughts, we could definitely wrap this up. But before we do, you got to let people know how to find you, how to listen to you, and all that good stuff.
Oh, I appreciate it. Listen to The Drive every Monday through Friday from 2 to 6 on 610 Sports Radio. I'm also here to promote my podcast. I'm trying to compete with you in the podcast digital space.
Promote it.
Rob Brenton and I, my producer, we've started a podcast. It's called Bad Movies, Worst Opinions. So we watch movies that are rated below a 6.0 or less on IMDb. We just rewatched the movie Spring Breakers. So if you want to check that podcast out, you can get that anywhere you get podcasts on. Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeart. You guys know where you get podcasts from. So yeah, Bad Movies, Worst Opinions. We watch bad movies. We do. We release it every Tuesday. Next Tuesday, we're doing Daredevil right now. That's on HBO Max
with Affleck.
With Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck, Jennifer Gardner, Michael Clark Duncan is in that as well. Yeah, no, I watched Daredevil. Yeah, that podcast comes out on Tuesday. So yeah, that's all I'm here to promote, man. I'm happy to come on, man. Let's do this again after they make a couple more moves.
Well, I appreciate your time as always, man. Even we just crossed 100K, which is a huge deal.
I saw that. Congratulations.
Even when I had, thank you, man. But even when I had 5K, you were like, hey, man, I'd be happy to help. I can tell you're, putting a lot of effort into the channel and would love to help you anytime. And you were serious, and I appreciate that. To circle back to your podcast, you're not on YouTube, right? I just tried to look it up. You're not on YouTube yet with that podcast?
I'm trying to get my videos the way your videos look, so I got to have you come in and look at our setup. Like, look at it. You can see like the sweat glistening off your brow. We don't have that kind of setup where I am. You see the kind of camera and internet setup that I got here. So yeah, I got to have you come in and look at our setup. We got to get our setup right, and then we'll put it on YouTube. We're just starting. We're only 2 podcasts in. You got to build. You didn't start with 100,000 followers. You started with a couple videos. You kept making videos, and now look at you, man. You probably make more money doing that than what I do.
I have no idea, but it's been an awesome journey, man. I'm super blessed and super grateful. But yeah, dude, I'll come in and we'll get it nice and crispy, or try our best to be able to do so. So thanks again for your time, brother, and yeah, maybe next week, maybe the Chiefs will make a couple more moves and we'll jump on next week and rehash some thoughts, getting a glimpse. And then we could even just talk. We didn't have time today, but there's a bunch of moves in the AFC West that we could talk about later. They released Derek Carr to then sign a more injury-prone Derek Carr. We'll talk about that next time. There's some funny stuff going on.
Yeah, let's just set it up next Friday. We'll do the same time next Friday.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks for your time. Appreciate you. And yeah, go check out Carrington's podcast, and then follow him on Twitter. Check him out on the drive with 610.
See you guys. Thank you.
See ya. Awesome. Well, hey guys, I'm still going live at 2. We have like 700 people in here. Thanks for hanging out and listening. Carrington's awesome, always giving us some of his time. And yeah, he's a guy that reached out early on and said he'd love to come on and help. And so I just reached out to him. Hey man, you want to chat this week? There's been a lot of moves. I'm going live again at 2 p.m. for the Q&A. So I'm not going to really answer a lot of questions here, but Terry, thanks for the 20 bomb. We had a membership earlier. I think it was Darth Bane. Thanks for all the thoughts, man. I understand not everything Carrington says you guys will agree with. Not everything I say you'll agree with. That's kind of the fun part of it, is we all kind of have thoughts on potential moves and directions the Chiefs should go. And we don't have the full picture behind the scenes of what Veach and company are up to. I am going to check Twitter before I get off to make sure nothing else happened, Chiefs-wise. I don't think so. But yeah, that's part of the fun. Like, that's part of the fun for me right now. With all the moves that the Chiefs could make, should make, everybody has hot takes or opinions, and it's been a lot of fun to be able to look through the options and talk through it with you guys. I will say this. No matter what happens at wide receiver, the Chiefs can't go into next season with how they are right now, with MVS as basically wide receiver 1 or Kadarius Toney with his injuries, that have happened basically since he joined the NFL. And then Justin Ross and John Ross, guys, they are potentials. We have no idea if it's going to work out. They could surprise us all, but I don't think the Chiefs are going to go into the season with this current wide receiver core. Maybe draft one. If they want to draft one early and then sign a vet, like that makes sense. But we'll talk more at 2 p.m. That's an hour and 45 minutes. And we'll hang out, answer questions, and we'll definitely I'll definitely just kick it with you guys and have more of a conversation. That was more just to catch up with Carrington about what was going on. And Rivers, thanks for the 2 months. So I'll see you guys back at 2. Thanks again for hanging out. And until next time, which is an hour and 45 minutes, let's go. Let's freaking go.